What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. I am currently in the city of Baltimore, also known as Charm City and the city that reads. More like the city that bleeds, am I right? But I love that town, and I'll be there at the Baltimore Convention Center for Baltimore Comic Con in Artist Alley at table A248 with plenty of merchandise available. Swing on by today. I'm speaking to you from the past, but the way it schedules, don't worry about it. It's fine. Swing on by, shake hands at the very least. Secondly, last week's video, I got a lot of kind of comments about the KO third party. What's like, look, I've said what I had to say about most of that. There hasn't been enough information available to change my perspective on any of it. So until I get to that point, I'm not really going to talk about it anymore because I kind of said what I needed to say. I just hope you guys keep that same energy if you're talking about stuff that Hasbro owns the rights to and doesn't own the rights to, because they don't even own the rights to the names of some of their own characters any longer. But we're off that. Moving on, all of the sweatshirts and t-shirts and all that stuff is in stock now, so I'll be getting it out. Some of you have already seen your shipping notices. Next week I should have it all shipped out 100%. With a few exceptions, two people in particular, one I've spoken to and one I have to speak to. Thank you everyone that pre-ordered. I do have a few extra t-shirts left. I don't think I'll be doing this again. So once they're gone, and that's it. All the hoodies are sold out. What else has happened this week? We saw Batman's wiener. That happened. We saw that. You know, I would like to do discussions about that sort of thing, like as they pop up, so to speak. I'm not sure if my audience is interested in that sort of stuff. So let's get into the discussion of today. And let me tell you, I really wish this conversation was going to go a different way. But it's not. I imagine I'm going to catch a fair amount of shit over this. But we'll see. Maybe I can articulate my points enough to where the people that are getting their boards and nails out will just put them aside and say, you know what? He's right. Or, you know what? He's wrong. But I see where he's coming from. So let's get into it. We got a number of Bumblebee trailers for the new movie hitting in December from Coraline and Paranorman and Kubo's or whatever that other one was that everybody talks fondly of, but I don't know if I've ever met anyone that's actually seen it, which is fine. I love some movies that no one's seen. So let's talk about a few of the surrounding elements of it, and then we're gonna get into the G1 conversation, which I know people out there feel passionately about one way or the other, but let's wait to get there. First of all, we're gonna get a number of triple changers in this, it looks like, to include these two new Decepticons, I'd imagine, Shatter and Dropkick. They're turning into aircraft and, you know, muscle cars and that sort of bit, which is fine. I'm not sure why they would go with characters like that don't have a connection to anyone, but I have a theory about it. We're going to circle back to it. But it would lead me to believe that Blitzwing will also be a triple changer. Now, we can have that discussion about the Blitzwing Starscream thing, but I think most people have come to terms with it either positively or negatively. I know that some people are saying, look, it's Starscream. You can call him whatever you want, but it's Starscream. My buddy Joe even said that, but that's not the truth. Because Starscream isn't really defined by his iconic look, and it is an iconic look, and I do believe they should stay true to it, but he's defined by his character traits. And if Blitzwing has a totally different character, then it's not going to feel like Starscream as much as it looks like Starscream. I think that was a huge oversight here, a huge error, and I think they paid for it. And I mean that literally. We'll circle back to it. Also, it seems like John Cena is going to be the villain. Do people think this is Tony Ayo, isn't it? This isn't, like this, did he get that from Tony Ayo? I think he got it from Tony Ayo. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to check the dates on that, though. But it looks like he's going to be the villain, in my opinion. Obviously, the Decepticons are villains, but I would imagine that it's going to be a little bit more poignant with him. You know, these monsters are here to invade our planet and cause us a bunch of grief, but it turns out we're the real monsters, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? You see what I'm getting at there, the line I'm trying to draw? Which is a bit predictable and unfortunate. And maybe he'll have a moment at the end where he sees Bumblebee for who he really is and realizes they're on the same size and they have a little robot mech fist bump action, which would just, I'm sure, be a huge hit. And a little hit. Forget it. Alright, let's get into it. So we get some G1 action. I mean, G1 action. What do we get? We get Tetrajets. We get Shockwave. We get Soundwave with Ravage jumping out of him. We get a G1 Prime. We get a Conehead. That's so off color, but still a Conehead. a big Cybertronian battle. Am I happy about it? Absolutely. 100% I'm happy about it. In concept. In execution, it's too soon to say. And I'll tell you why. Oh boy. I'm hesitant to go down this road with you guys. I don't think it looks good. Not in concept. The designs and such, I feel like work fine. They fit for that world, etc. No issue. I don't think it looks good in quality. Now, what's the saving grace to that? The saving grace is that this movie doesn't come out till December, and oftentimes now Hollywood is working on post-production special effects up until sometimes a week before release. So there's plenty of time to make this look right, I would imagine. But as of right now, I don't think it looks right. Why? My theory is, I think it was an afterthought. I think after the negative reaction from Comic-Con at San Diego, I think maybe they've been working on it since and have added it as an afterthought. I could be totally wrong, and I'm okay with that. That's another problem today. People don't always want to speculate anymore. People have to be right or wrong. Sometimes it's okay to just shoot theories. And if you're wrong, then you're wrong. And if you're right, then that was fun too. Doesn't matter. I think that's why it looks so video gamey. And it does look video gamey. It doesn't look that much better than the Fall of Cybertron trailer we got. Is that because video game effects have gotten better, or because this just looks bad? Maybe both. And maybe they're still working on it, and maybe we'll get a really good render of this once it's done. And this is just to kind of get people excited and talking about it, which they are, case in point. But some of it looks very Fall of Cybertron-y. Very. Honestly, when I first saw images of it, which was before the trailer came out, I thought it was fan-made. I even saw the Ravage eject from the chest. I thought it was fan-made, that somebody cut in to the trailer. Like somebody designed it at home and cut it into the trailer. That's how off it seemed to me. I hope I'm articulating this clearly. I love that they're doing it. I think they have a lot more work to put into it to make it look on par with the visual effects that are already established in the movie with B and these triple changers that no one cares about. Now, the hologram image of Optimus, I think, was already in the movie, because that looks a bit better. Now, obviously, it's just a hologram, so it doesn't have to look as good, do you know what I mean, in order to work, but I think that does work better. Let me tell you how this is going to pan out, in my opinion, anyway. I think all of this stuff is going to be like a 3-minute sequence. It's going to be a flashback that Bumblebee is telling this young lady, or that Prime is telling Bumblebee because he's lost his memories. Because it doesn't seem like he can talk at this point either, which is a bummer. Let me get off that for a second and divert. I hate how Bumblebee feels like a pet dog in these movies. He doesn't feel like a character that's interacting with the cast. He feels like the human's puppy. I can't stand that. One thing that would help deter that is if you gave him a voice, a proper voice. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. I think that he's going to be telling her his story, or he was damaged in his travel to Earth, can't remember, and that hologram thing of Prime is telling both of them his story. Because we see that pod escaping from Cybertron, I'm guessing that's him, and I'm guessing that takes place after this one battle sequence that we will see on Cybertron, where we see Optimus fight Thundercracker, it looks like, and Ravage. We see Tetrajets, we see Shockwave and them shooting. We see all that stuff, and all that stuff is cool, but I'm guessing that's going to be a very, very, very small portion of this movie. And I'm guessing that it's so small because it was an afterthought. Because if they were going so G1, why would they include Drop Kick and Shatter and a Blitzwing that looks like a Starscream? I don't think they always cared. I think that when people booed at SDCC, when the internet reaction was so strong, and the fan base reaction was so strong that this wasn't Starscream and in fact it was Blitzwing, I think it was like, well, how can we appease them? Which, too, if that is correct, to Travis Knight's credit, he's listening to the fans, which is great, and I'm all for that. We have 5 examples when they didn't listen to the fans. But I get the feeling this is a very short sequence that was added as an afterthought to appease fans and a slap in the face that this G1 fan base does actually want G1 in the movies. Which brings us to the reboot conversation. Let's establish this. There is a reboot, which is a total starting over. DC New 52 is a reboot. Batman Begins is a reboot. Amazing Spider-Man is a reboot. Spider-Man Homecoming is a reboot. That's when you have a property, it has an established fiction and world, and you start completely over from scratch. Reboot. I don't think that's what this is. I don't think it's realistic to consider that that's what this is. There's too much connective tissue. The fact that they didn't make him Starscream, they made him Blitzwing, because Starscream is established in this world. The fact that they're sticking true to the facial design of the movie B, and including stuff like the battle helmet and all that kind of stuff. The fact that he doesn't have a voice. Like, there's too much there. So I don't think it's realistically possible for this to be a reboot. I get why you would want it to be. I would want it to be as well. But I don't think it's fair to call it that. Alright, so that's a reboot. The next thing is a relaunch, also referred to as a soft reboot. X-Men First Class would be an example of this, where you try to stay inside the world, but you make some changes that you don't think will be a big deal, or you can tell them from a different perspective in order to sort of change the timeline or change the path that it's on in order for this to work. For instance, Wolverine is definitely in First Class. He's also established in the other X-Men movies. But we have Emma Frost that's in both that doesn't line up at all. And you can go on, which we're not going to. But that would be a relaunch. A lot of times they do it by doing different universes, different timelines, whatever. I think it's possible that that might be what this is, but I still think it's unlikely. But if it's going to be any of the things that we're going to talk about today, which is only one more, it's probably this one. However, the connective tissue between all of these films is flimsy at best. So in a way, they're all soft reboots. I understand how people want this universe to start over. I understand how seeing the imagery of this trailer will make you want to start over using this movie, but I don't think it's the right time or choice. I think if the fan reaction, if the audience reaction, if the ticket sales reaction to the G1 stuff works really well, we could definitely see a proper reboot of a story that most of us in my age bracket want to see. And then lastly, there's a retcon, which means retroactive continuity, which is where you go back and change a few things or add in a few things that don't necessarily take away from the narrative of the world, but enrich it and make it something more than what it was initially intended to be. Probably should have worded those 3 I words differently, but hopefully you're keeping up. A retcon would be Rogue One and having Jyn Erso's father install the shatter point, so to speak, into the Death Star so that it could be destroyed, rather than it just being a exhaust port that just happened to be there by circumstance. That's a retcon. I don't think that's what this is either. There's too much to retcon in the Transformers Bayverse. You'd have to have 5 or 6 films to make sense of it all, because they'd have to take place in between the other films. It's too much. It's messy. And I'm getting to that in a future sit-down Saturday, but it's going to be in the far future, probably close to when this movie comes out, but I have something special planned. But I think it's more than likely the case that this is going to be some sort of soft reboot, which is really just sticking true to the formula, because they're all kind of soft reboots, because the connective tissue between them contradicts itself every other second. Now let's talk about the possibility of Masterpiece figures coming from this line. Will I be in? Possibly. It depends on how good they looked in the finished render. Would I be in for the line? Definitely not. But if I love the characterization in that 3 to 5 minute sequence that I think we're getting, of say Soundwave, I might pick up the Soundwave and Ravage, have it as a standalone on its own shelf somewhere as kind of like, yeah, they did that and that's pretty cool. I don't think there's enough in this movie that's possibly plausible for me to fall in love with the franchise in this rendition of it enough for me to buy into an entire line. I just don't see that being a possibility, a realistic one. But hopefully I do fall in love with these designs, and I fall in love with them enough to cherry pick a few out of them. That would be okay with me. So in closing, I think it's possible that it's a soft reboot. I don't think the implications of that soft reboot are anything great. I love that they have the G1 designs in it, but I wish that those G1 designs looked as good in terms of quality of CGI as a lot of the other bots. I also think that the stuff that we're seeing in these last 2 trailers are probably part of a 3 to 5 minute sequence that make up a 2-hour film. So while I'm optimistic about it, I'm also realistic in the sense that it's probably a very small slice of this pie. And if I were to get Masterpiece figures of it, it would greatly depend on how much I like the finished designs in the film. I feel like that was a good conversation. Hopefully you're coming to Baltimore. If you are, stop by my table, shake hands, and say hello. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.